Hello, thank you guys for coming and watching OreAni. Yay! We're doing the end of the spring season 2014. And since some shows are still going, we're going to be skipping those shows and continuing on in another week. But as for the titles that have already completed, we got a group here and we're going to discuss them. We got Albert,
Hello.
Kevin,
Hey, what's up?
and welcome to the group. You're Michael, long time no see.
Word.
Nick,
Microsoft Word.
Oh, Jesus.
Write letters and shit, yeah.
Right,
and
letters.
Sean.
Yeah.
Hey,
Alright, so let's start off with a pretty freaky show. Selector Whitcross, right? Or infect.
Yes, the infected is quite essential because it's going to differentiate from the second season coming out, known as Selector Spread. We cross.
So I know Nick's a big card fanatic, so we'll let him start off this series.
Okay. But one thing I kind of want to get out of the way right off the bat is, even though that this anime centers kind of around a card game that's, I guess, rather popular in Japan. I'm not sure. I'm not over there. It actually isn't like any other card game anime in the sense of it doesn't really center around teaching you the game or making the battle super interesting. It's kind of dubbed the Madoka Magica of card game anime. It just really wants to tell its story, and it uses like the card games as a means just to kind of push the forward story a little bit. This one's seen quite a bit of hype, talked about by a lot of people across a lot of the internet, for that matter, and
What?
it's just who was the writer?
Mario Kata.
Right. You want to tell us about Mario Kata there, Sean, a little bit? Because I know you're like the head in like storyboard writing here.
She's the lead writer of the show, yeah. And she's done Anohana. Hold on, I'm not prepared for this hangout. what else has she done? She did like the fish.
She did
people
Nagi no
show.
Mascara.
Yeah.
Fish people show.
She did Sakura So.
hmm Yeah, and she also did the adaptation of a Toradora back in the day. But I think Anohana is her most like well-known original work. But her shows tend to have a lot of like tears and running away and drama. And this is Mario Kata's take on Madoka Magica. It's like barely a card game anime past a certain point. It gets so dark like so fast. It's a real blast. You should watch it. I think you have to. There's also some elements of like decoding the English in the title, because this what looks like Wyzos is actually pronounced Wicross. It stands for wishes across, which makes sense when you watch the show because all the characters are sort of like playing this card game with each other, but if they win, then they get to have their wish fulfilled, like Dragon Ball style. But there's more to it. There's like a twist that gets revealed like midway.
They gotta collect the 7 balls.
The 7 cards or loot rigs, I guess. But
And all the characters are so-called selectors because only they get to have their wishes fulfilled, and everyone else is just playing a friendly game of Wicross. But the game has been infected with selectors, or at least that's my interpretation of the title. What was that?
That was Mike getting too carried in the H games.
What?
And yeah, I really want to see the next series of this because I want to see where Okada's going to take it. I want to try and decode what the themes of it are. Like, I'm not sure if I'll be able to, but it's really interesting. Just how everybody has their wishes, but if they lose the card games, then something really bad happens. If they win the card games, something really bad happens.
Yeah,
nobody
that's
seems to have their wishes fulfilled. Like, instead, some really other weird stuff happens. There
yeah,
are a lot
similar
of
reason.
there are a lot of
Well,
twists. Yeah, someone else can talk about Wicross. I think I said my piece.
Yeah, it was actually kind of like upsetting that it didn't help me learn the game at all. But I mean, overall, I really do still think it's a great title regardless. And I kind of like the venture of it, kind of even not getting involved in game mechanics because that does kind of feel forced in the story. It's like the show just exists to try to teach you the game, or I don't know. I think Yu-Gi-Oh kind of didn't necessarily teach you the game, but it just kind of got like crazy with like scripted battles. But it does entice me to kind of want to try out the game, but sadly, we don't have much on like the translation front or a lot on the import side to kind of get going with that. So
I actually avoided this series for the longest time because I thought it was going to be like a glorified uh, advertisement for this card game. But no, it totally isn't. Actually, the card game becomes like a point of horror. I don't know what kind of bizarre marketing strategy this is, but
I mean, it's kind of working because it is bringing a lot of attention to the series. So
it's making people watch the anime. I don't know if it'll make them want to play the card game.
right.
I don't know. I kind of want to play it. Looks like fun, especially if I get sucked into another world and battle other people. That sounds like fun.
And if you lose, then your life is ruined.
Oh well, I ain't got no wishes anyway.
Yeah.
If you win, then your life is ruined.
Oh man, I love the main character because she didn't have any wishes for the longest time, and everyone just described her as like scary.
Yeah. Oh man.
A lot of people were actually like her friends didn't know how to interpret it, but it was actually kind of funny because everyone she faced who wasn't like her small group of friends were like, "It's like unfair that you don't have a wish on the line here."
Yeah, it's like this is taboo. You shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah, and then there were all those childhood flashbacks of like her parents calling her scary or something.
Her mom, yeah. They don't. I don't think they've ever brought up her dad.
So I kind of expected her to become a villain or something. Like at some point she would just realize I am totally evil and all I live to do is to crush the wishes of little girls.
Like a certain somebody that's in the game already.
I think that villain has plans. It'll be fun to see what she's up to.
She's
in the
gonna
next
go
series.
around, want to make a contract.
It's almost like that one villain wants her wish to be fulfilled. I have a good idea of what her wish is.
Hmm.
Just a guess, though.
So one thing that kind of surprised me was throughout the whole show, everything was pretty dark. I mean, the color-wise, I mean, it was just really strange when I was watching it that nothing really stood out. Everything was pretty bland.
It wasn't bland, it was ominous. Like it was never a sunshiny day, it seemed like. And the backgrounds were like really photorealistically detailed. It was like movie quality backgrounds. I was kind of surprised by the design of the show. So that's another reason that brought me back into it, because I only saw the first episode. I'm like, man, I don't want to watch a card game anime. But at the same time, it just had such an ominous tone to it that I kind of wondered if it would go anywhere. And then everyone started saying that, like, oh, this is the Madoka Magica card game anime. Then I had to come back to it. But yeah, the design really stands out.
All right.
I think JC Staff lately has done a pretty good job, like, making anime with distinct visual designs. Like, even though I haven't watched many JC Staff anime lately, but I've always been aware of them.
So as Nick mentioned here, we got a second core coming probably within the fall, right? And they just changed one part from infected to spread. So airing this fall was pit at the end of the last episode, so I can't wait for that to come up next season.
And we have no idea what the hell spread means, so we gotta decode the English like all over again. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah.
Awkward silence not necessary.
Well, let's move on to the next title then. Data Live 2, which actually kind of surprised me with how short it was. This only ran 10 episodes compared to everything else that was pretty much 12 right now. You're muted, Nick, if you're trying to talk.
Whoops. My bad. Yeah, it definitely is one of the shorter episodes. I think it only directly ties with one other series, or it's only beaten by like one episode. The other series might be an 11, but I think it's 10-2. Data Live was a most interesting kind of continuation from the original. I didn't expect it to pick up where it did. I was almost hoping for like a direct continuing, picking up right up where they left off. And it wasn't the exact scene that it left off on, but it for the most part, it exactly felt like a season 2 of the show. They didn't do too much too different. We have new characters who were introduced, and we see a lot of reoccurring, or almost every character reoccurred for the most part, except like at the very end. We had like probably one pop in for the last tidbit that everyone wanted to see throughout the whole season, but all in all, I think it is a interesting continuation of their story, and I kind of wish they will start like resolving it and exposing a lot of the bigger secrets in the background. We didn't progress too much far in that sense, but it was an entertaining second season. I will give it that.
Yeah, I don't think it answered any of my questions, which is why I started watching the second season. I want to know what happened between him and his sister when he was a kid, and why is it that he can come back to life? I want to know.
If anything, I think it added more questions with showing what he was able to do midway.
Yeah, it did, using what's her face's powers, and she's awesome. Just she's my favorite.
Toka?
So one thing I did notice, which was kind of interesting, I don't know if anyone else has noticed when you're watching the show, was whenever they used their, what do they call it, scarce powers or whatever?
No, the angels or something, or the
Yeah, whenever they got their spiritual energy, whatever clothing they were wearing, their uniform comes kind of similar to whatever they were wearing.
yeah,
So,
like
like, when
you have
she
like
was-
a demi-emergence of like the garb.
Yeah, so like instead of always being the same uniform every time she changes, it actually, instead of just being the same thing all the time, it's actually a different uniform every single time because of what she's wearing is different during the time.
Yeah, there was a lot of visual aspects that I really appreciated that emerged in Data Live 2, and I actually did like it as a wholesome project, despite a lot of people feeling that the ending wasn't what it should have been. Too bad kind of Mike had a nail right here. He's an avid reader of Data Live, and he had a lot to say on the topic of how it's decent, but not what he would have liked to have seen for a second season. He didn't like how they chose to construe or to animate the storyline plot, bloody blah. But at least the show seems like it's going to be around for a little bit of a while longer, and I do like shows like this when they kind of stretch out their story and at least show characters that you can kind of get into. I just didn't like their execution for like the later arc, but I still had a good time with it.
So do you feel that they're maybe adding too many people? 'Cause,
I really don't feel that. I appreciate a lot of the new characters.
Being someone who can't remember names too well, yeah, I see that as a problem. Because I'm like, what's this person's name now? Hell, I don't fucking know. So yeah, I see that as a little bit confusing for me, just me personally. But I'm not against it either. You know, it definitely it definitely adds more to the story. Like I love seeing him always in trouble, like consistently in trouble. It makes me laugh because they're always being jealous over each other, and he ends up suffering, and it's just funny.
Yeah, he's like included in so many like time and place kind of plot progressions. It's kind of crazy. If anyone did watch kind of Data Live season 1, you would pretty much know to seal away one of the spirits, as they call them, the people who appear, who have powers and whatnot. It requires the main character to do something. And typically whenever he sealed away their powers, results in a very embarrassing scene, and somebody always manages to view him right in this timing. Like, dude never gets any privacy.
Never. And it's great.
So Albert's sharing us a picture here.
I think it's the same person that is always walking in on him too.
For the most part.
But one thing they did do, is they kept a lot of the same jokes and same comedy routines consistent. And one thing that I don't know why she makes me laugh, but that one girl that's always like saying, "You're the lowest," or whatever that word is. You're gross every single time.
Oh, Majihikuwa.
Every single line. That's all she says.
That's like the only thing she said all season.
I mean, even if she has to like lengthen her sentences, she just says it like 2 times or 3 times.
Ew, gross. Or so lame. That was another one.
It's the same phrase though every single time he says it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was funny. I definitely recommend you guys watch that one. It's funny.
There's a lot of interesting character design in Data Live for anyone who likes even the semi-harem shows, because this one's a little bit different, but I mean, for the most part, it plays very similarly. And the character design is really phenomenal at times. I really wish we saw more of his sister acted in this season. I really like the fire spirit ability, and it played like no role.
And she really didn't play a role this time.
Alright, so let's go ahead and move on. So, once again, Data Live, if you've seen the first season, you just expect more of the same thing in the second, and that'd be it for that, I would say. Next thing up, we got Ishukan Friends. Right? Or 1 Week Friends, as someone else has called it. I actually didn't watch this.
No, I
Let's
didn't
have
watch
Albert.
it either.
You want to share your thoughts, Albert, on
Yeah.
this?
So Ishukan Friends is based off of a shoujo manga. I haven't read the original And the premise is, if you've watched something like, what was it, 50 First Dates?
First dates, yeah.
Right? Yeah.
hmm
It's similar, although there's a slight twist. So the main character, I guess the girl, Kaori, she has a memory problem that every Monday her memory resets. But specifically, it turns out about fun things that she did with friends. So anyone she considers a friend, she forgets. And therefore, for quite some time, all through middle school, uh, she has not made any friends because she can't remember any of them. And so she is withdrawn and um, kind of off on her own. So the story starts when one of her classmates, um, Hase Yuki, decides to befriend her because, well, he's kind of interested in her. Um, pro- Probably in a romantic way, but also, just curiosity because she seems very different from all the other girls. And so he asks to become her friend, and she at first refuses, but over time, he becomes friends with her during that first week, and then he learns about her memory. And at first, of course, you wouldn't believe it, but sure enough, she has no recognition of him. And so it's kind of his way of trying to come to terms with it, at the same time trying to help her um, regain or be able to retain her memories. So that's kind of the premise. It was kind of interesting. I just picked it up because the artwork kind of looked cute. It had a lot of pastel tones. And shoujo manga tends to have a lot more character development. So that's why I picked it up. And it turned out that over the course of the series, I was quite impressed at the pacing, the character development, some of the twists that came through the series, and overall, I really ended up enjoying it a lot more towards the end than when I first started. As oh, I'll just check this out because it sounds interesting, and it became a lot more involved. You end up putting a lot of emotional investment into the story. So I thought it was a really good series.
Yeah, I would just like to add, specifically towards the art and whatnot, that I kind of like some of the design. Like typically, whenever the characters are playing, they had like their set hairstyle, but like the artist would always put like a tinge of hair that's like out of place, like this one little like strand of hair just coming off the characters. So little things like that I do appreciate, and I will admit the story actually hooked me in really early in the first few episodes, but then it kind of like mellowed out through the rest of the series. And I was hoping that we'd have a lot more kind of situational drama, if you will. But it played in a way that I didn't necessarily like infer that it would at first. So it's definitely one of the slower titles this season, and but a pretty interesting watch if you're kind of into the slower paced shows that are really grounded in like dramatic storylines. Except this one didn't really try to like exactly like kind of like wow you at any typical moment. It didn't really want to like eye-widenly like just like shock the heck out of you. So it's a pretty mellow playthrough.
Anything else? Like, did it just end? Is it just the ending like a good result, or is it like open for something else to come up?
It's open for continuation because I think the manga is still going on, but they ended at a pretty good place. So I mean the arc feels complete, but there obviously could be a lot more story that they could tell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I'm not exactly sure. The way it closed, it didn't exactly like promise a season two or anything. But I'm just not too familiar with like the original content story. I think a lot of everyone they wanted to introduce got introduced, and while a lot of people would appreciate seeing where the story would go, it doesn't leave too many things open-ended. Like you pretty much get like what our main character's going for and what he's kind of in for, and they did close up a lot of what seemed to be loose ties for a fairly complete ending if it never continues again, animation-wise.
So one thing that I kind of wanted to ask was I kind of did want to finish watching this, but I felt that it was a title that I couldn't marathon because of it might be too slow or just too much romance. Would you say it's marathonable, or I should take it at a decent pace?
Personally, I would maybe not suggest marathoning it. Just, I mean, there's nothing inherently wrong with it, but like this show never really necessarily just kind of grasped my attention and made me look forward to the next week. It wasn't. I actually forgot to bring up my list of top fives as we've been announcing the titles. Like it just dawned on me, but this show kind of ranked as a little mediocre to me, and kind of like more towards the average median of my list. And it's always kind of harder to marathon shows like that, in my personal opinion. But like, if you were really into the show, then by all means, go ahead.
What would you say, Albert? Do you think you could marathon it, or?
I would recommend against marathoning it. I think if you watch, I mean, you could watch an episode a day, I would say, but if you just watch like 3 in a row, it doesn't really follow that kind of pacing, frantic pacing of an action show. So I think it's more enjoyable if you take your time with it.
All right, because I was just wondering about that because I was thinking about it, but then I'm like, I don't know if I should try it. I might lose interest in it really fast if I try to do it like that.
Yeah, I was listening to you guys, and it's probably one of those animes to me that I would have as a casual watch. I'd watch what I want to watch first, and then I'd just go to that one when I don't have anything else. I'd use it as a casual watch. Not my cup of tea, really. Nothing gets blown up. Nobody dies.
Nobody dies. It's not an anime if nobody dies.
Come on, man. Somebody got to die somewhere. At least get the shit kicked out of them.
But,
All right.
It's just my thing.
Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the next title, which is your cup of tea then, because they want their ass kicked here. Na 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 show.
It's just like na 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 treasure.
What is it? Ryuga jo na 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 no Maizokin?
Yeah.
Appropriate.
Yeah, I don't know Spanish, but
It's not.
Maybe you should learn sometime. Spanish is really versatile over there in Japan. You can ask for your tortillas and your.
I could barely read English. Come on now. I ain't gonna go learn another language.
Okay, well, let me just say, Nanana's collection, as I like to call it for short, in my opinion, was probably one of the more underrated shows of the season. The characters were very enjoyable, and the plot was actually surprisingly good. I was actually watching back in the day a Fibrain, which is more targeted to a much, much younger audience, because I was interested in kind of watching it, how they animated kind of like unrealistic puzzles. And I didn't expect Nanana to come out right next season after I hope Fibrain is like officially ended. I'm surprised it ran for 3 seasons, but again, it was marketed for kids, so it just really like made me question why I even bothered watching Fibrain. It was exactly what I wanted as far as having semi-unrealistic kind of puzzles. Like, there's a lot involved in the architecture that just makes them very unlikely. But with the emergence of the characters and such an immersive storyline, I know a lot of people watched it, but I do think that it's not going to get the amount of recognition it truly deserves, because, in my opinion, it was a surprisingly good series. So if anyone kind of has watched for like American kind of releases, it reminded me of a Warehouse 13, and a character has went out and collected a lot of like artifact items that have a special kind of power that has multi conditions, and she spent most of her time kind of unearthing them. She brings them to this island that she creates for people to kind of get ahead in life, as she says. It's for everyone who wishes to kind of be successful and try to like propel themselves in life. And throughout this island, we have lots of hidden treasures behind very intricate. Um, I wouldn't even call them traps or something. I don't necessarily know what I would necessarily call them, but
Puzzles.
as well, they weren't necessarily puzzles though. Some of them, but it was just like I said, it was such an interesting take watching the characters kind of with their own motivations, with enhanced with these randomly sporadic items that you wouldn't even have a clue what they do. And our main character has a tenant who was the original creator of the island, or at least one of the figureheads in driving it. And she is actually, we find out, passed away, and her ghost is like stuck possessing this room that she died in. And being the tenant who comes in, the main character has to kind of live alongside her. And the only thing that we know is she like demands pudding as far as anything of her background. She knows everything about the pieces of the puzzles and the artifacts. I mean, and she demands her pudding. So.
Gotta say,
What?
best roommate ever.
Best roommate ever.
She would be the best roommate ever. Play
I don't-
video games. She's hot.
No, she was playing that video game when you're trying to sleep, and that glow of the monitor might become a little annoying after a while, I think.
Dude, working at the shift that I do, I'm used to like sleeping in like mundane daily
Right.
noise
Same here.
and other stuff, so it wouldn't bother me none. But
No.
that's actually kind of a point of interest that I had in the series too. The games that she would be playing, randomly, like the camera would just kind of hone in, and you'd be like looking at a scene from like an MMO. You know, they played the various like from 2D fighters to like MMOs to epic RPG storylines, and the games came across as really interesting too. They weren't involved in the story at all, but I appreciated seeing them rezzed onto the monitor like they were. It was very interesting.
Or like a lot of times when they did zoom in, she was just standing there while her teammates got the crap kicked out of them. I noticed things like that. I just found it funny.
The one thing that I liked about the show a lot was the character designs. I mean, the way they drew their eyes drew me in, and that's what made me want to watch this show, is how they drew the characters. What about you, Albert?
So I was pretty enthusiastic about this at the onset. I really enjoyed the characters, the colors, the animation seemed really good, and the story seemed, the premise was interesting. But what I found was that, over time, I really couldn't relate to the main character, Jugo, because it turns out he has a secret upon secret. He said he was going to, help Nanana, and yet, so you think that's the love interest angle, but it's not. And I just couldn't get a really good feel for what exactly it is that he wants to do, And so ended up, my enthusiasm for it actually went down, and for me, it ended up being a kind of a middle grade show. I don't think they resolved a lot of the important plot points. The finale, episode was pretty lackluster, I thought. I did like a lot of the side characters, like Tensai was freaking hilarious.
Oh, I hated her.
Daru, or whatever his name is, I don't know.
Yeah, and Daruku the trap, and all kinds of things, right? So, I mean, I think, it's hard to quite put why I didn't like it as much as I thought I would. But I just felt it's probably the weakness of the original source, which is a light novel, and it's still ongoing, and maybe a lot of these things haven't been resolved, so they had no way to bring resolution into the anime. So I think that was part of my problem with it.
Right.
Yeah. So it ended up being, a little bit disappointing to me.
I will come out and say ahead of time that they definitely ended it on a note that seems it absolutely needs a season 2. It's like they left it so open ended, like literally it was kind of like right in the middle of like a 2 episode long scene that that really seemed like they were trying to promise a season 2 without directly coming out and announcing it. But I would actually honestly also say that our main character, I kind of agree with Albert there. He claimed quite a few things throughout the series, and then you kind of find out his true take on things much later in the plot. And I actually think I started liking him more for that reason, because it added like a sense of depth of character. He was kind of deceiving some of his friends to either A, protect him, or B, for his own personal reasons. But you always had to kind of question his motives, and to me that kind of added to the animation. I kind of had to look at this character and actually try to figure him out versus the straightforward character just progressing on simplistic reasons. So for me personally, I actually come to like that aspect of the animation, or of the show, the title.
All
What was
right.
your take on that, Kevin? Mr. Main Character. Did you hate him because he was too complex, or?
Actually, I really enjoyed Jugo. Sorry, I was reading. I can't do two things at once. I really enjoyed Jugo, and the way they ended this season, I actually thought there was going to be an episode 12. I was sitting here like, all right, I want to see episode 12, and because of the way it ended, I went, oh man, I was kind of disappointed. But I really enjoyed Jugo. The only person I got to say I didn't like was the four-eyed guy. I didn't really like him. I don't think you're supposed to like him, honestly. But I don't know. He rubbed me the wrong way. I was just like, get off the screen. I don't want to see you no more. It wasn't until about episode 10 that I started to change my opinion of him, because then you start to learn a little bit about the original club and the way it was, and it's like, oh, okay, that kind of makes sense now. But yeah, everybody else I liked.
Yeah, but this is the one show that almost beat Data Live in like shortness of episodes. It sits right between 10 and 11 or 12 at comfy 11. But I think for that reason too, it actually does seem a lot shorter than Data Live, just because it was Data Live's second season, and right now this is its only season at 11 episodes, which such like kind of an intriguing plotline as I take it to be. So it just seems like you really want to demand more out of it if you were into its story at all.
All right. So I just have to say, I don't know why people liked her, but I hated that detective.
I love Tensai.
I don't know why. She just made me upset, but you did remind me of one thing. I was having a discussion with someone. They kept on calling her a lolly character.
What?
I was like, that's not a lolly character. I hope you guys will agree with me, because
I'm pretty sure I would definitely
I can have
agree with you.
some audio proof saying that we don't say it's a lolly character.
Nah, I don't know.
Yeah, they didn't really play that moe-ness at all.
Yeah.
They didn't. If there was a lolly character, it was definitely that I forget her name, but the one chick with like the hairband that comes in later, the younger sister of the one dude in school.
Yeah.
Like she is more of a lolly angled character.
Yeah.
I think probably if I like Tensai just because of her attitude, it's like I'm better than you attitude. That's why I liked her, because it's like, you know what, I can relate to that.
I don't know. I don't know. She just pissed me off. I mean, like, whenever he would go in his room, she'd just be there. Hey, I was like, oh god, what's she doing in the room?
No, I really got to say, I did like her character, but I also thought that what's interesting is the presence of Tensai would also mean the presence of her partner, and the way they play off the humor with the partner, it's like whenever she's around, you knew it would be gold. So, and I actually did like her character a lot. Regardless, uh, kind of hard to exactly place why, but
All right, let's go ahead and move on. So to the looks like the
Big
title
talk.
everyone is talking about. Everyone likes to talk about this title for some reason. No game,
I
no
haven't seen it.
life. You're like the only person who hasn't seen it.
yeah, I think so actually.
Oh
And
wait, we got
Sean.
Sean's got bigger things to watch.
he tried. He gave it a shot.
I actually stopped at after they played the chess game that sort of dissolved into silliness.
That was like the first episode. I
I
think.
know.
I'm pretty sure.
No, that was
You
like
stopped
That
on
episode
was
episode
4.
one.
episode 3.
Well, whatever. I mean, after they played that game, I kind of stopped there.
Oh no, not the opening chess game. Yeah, okay, I get what. Sorry, there's two chess
No,
games.
the big one with
Yeah,
the chess
the big
pieces that come
one.
to life.
The game for the throne, so to speak, and not the game to. Yeah, you're definitely coming to my world.
What about you? What do you have to say about the show?
I, picked it up on a whim at the beginning of the season. Ended up enjoying it quite a bit. You do need to get used to that really bright pink, purple color scheme that they use because they're in a different world. But it's nice to occasionally see characters that are actually competent at what they do. So, not the whiny, bratty kids and not the ones that are never good, but it was nice to see Shiro and Sora come into this world and basically start to own it. So it was refreshing in that sense. I know I think they covered about 3 volumes of the source material, which is again a light novel, and I think there's 6, possibly 7 volumes out now. So there's enough for a second season. I can't see this not getting a second season. It's been pretty popular from what I've seen. I'm not sure about the sales, but certainly it was a fun watch, and all the different games that they played and the way that they thought through to basically play the game and to not necessarily cheat, but to game the system, of what they were playing. It was pretty well thought out. It wasn't just random crap that they just pulled out with no explanation to how they did it. It was actually explained. And although it is a little bit convenient that they have these near godlike precognition of, playing ahead 20, 30, 40 steps from their opponents. So, yeah, but there's the characters are interesting, the games are fun. It was just a fun show. So.
Yeah, I've honestly got to say that I forgot to mention it, but Na was probably one of my top 5 series of the season, just personally. I think Game of Life or No Game No Life is easily one of the most forerunners of it, only maybe directly challenged in popularity by possibly Knights of Sidonia. But this show had massive exposure and drew in a ton of or fans who don't even necessarily watch anime as kind of like a mainstream thing. I was kind of blown away by its coloring style. Again, it's out there and unique, but I fully appreciated the difference. Um, I really like the otaku nature of the show, though. I mean, a lot of its humor is invested in everything anime, so it's definitely a lot more funny to anyone who's been an anime fan for a very long time and appreciates what we call eccentric otaku humor. The fantasizing over females and its humor is pretty top notch. There's not a show that I've watched anytime recently that just like caused me to pause the playing episode and like literally like get a laughing fit in before I'm ready to continue. So I found it massively humorous, and for that reason, super entertaining. The plot line reminds, as we all already said, reminds us of troublesome children fall from the sky, or whatever it was. But I do appreciate this show like threefold more. Just the content that it produces, and a lot of the character design really benefited, in my opinion, from that adverse color scheme too. Tons of fan art has been coming out for this series has been really interesting to kind of watch, and yeah, I just can't wait for when it gets its second season, personally.
So to add on to what you said about the otaku nature, they did also a lot of references to a lot of anime and video gaming things that are out there. So like I saw, of course, people. I didn't notice it myself, but when someone posted it, they had him one moment he was sitting there like in the Gendo pose, and they had some like Doraemon type of quote there. So if you've been in anime a lot, you could catch some of the little um, references they used, and even the gaming. I guess someone said that at the very end they had some kind of gaming quote about this arrow to the knee that was used in some game. So
Skyrim.
yeah, I think that. So I'm kind of interested in seeing if someone has posted like every single reference that is out there for that.
I'm sure you can find it. I mean, it is the internet. But one other thing I wanted to mention is there is a fair amount of fan service. So although it's done in a pretty hilarious and unique way, especially episode 6, where they're matching Jibril from the Flugel
Jeebity.
for the library. That was just over the top hilarious. So
It was, because it's such a common like censorship that's employed in many animes, but this series actually kind of set up like a plot censor. In plot, the character performs actions that actually cause the censor to kind of make sense. It wasn't like the synonymous random streak of light coming across the scene and everyone being like, "Why is that streak of light there?" Our main character sets up for it, induces it, and then brags about this like common form of censorship that we've seen a lot across a lot of titles, but that they didn't necessarily make it make sense in plot, like No Game No Life.
But there's one thing we can't mention. According to the show, everything must be plus 18 safe. Can't be over plus 18. So I had someone mention that they weren't going to watch this show because he was so afraid of this whole incest thing going on. He was afraid there's going to be some kind of incest moments. And that was kind of funny about it. But from what I see, I don't think anything is going to happen. It was kind of interesting. For the longest while, I was actually kind of wondering if Shiro and Sora were actually blood related.
I believe they are.
No, they aren't. Sora and Hiro. Sora comes from, I think, like the typical his father's side of the family or whatever. But he was introduced to Hiro when she was really, really little, and upon their first meeting, he said something, and Hiro picked up on it, which like kind of instantly clicked with our main character and made him realize that this is exactly like a complementing personality to his, and he kind of started realizing their exact potential for greatness at such a young age. But they are definitely not blood related. They are step siblings.
Well, I think they're brother and sister, but
Yeah.
we'll
They
see
call
how that
themselves
goes
brother
later.
and sister, but trust me, they're step siblings.
I'm gonna Google this shit right now.
I don't care. Go ahead. Watch the story instead next time.
I will. This is actually one of the few animes that I plan on buying. I don't buy a whole lot of them because I'm poor, but this is one of the few that I do plan
I
on
knew
buying.
this thing was gonna freaking drive the sales. I think I actually looked it up. Sentai, I think, is grabbing this one. I'm fairly certain, and I imagine that I don't know about like things overseas, but I think it's going to see a lot of fandom over here in the U.S.
Nick, I owe you a Mountain Dew. You're right.
Why?
They're step related. They're step siblings. I owe you a Dew. Damn it. I think one of the reasons why they are so good in this world is because they spent their majority of their life playing games, and they go into a world that's nothing but a game to them. So all they see is just a giant game, and they take the rules and they go, you know what? I know how to apply this to where I'm not breaking any rules. And they spent a good majority of the time beating cheaters, so they catch up on that. They don't have it set in their head, oh, I'm a weak human. They know their strengths, they know their weaknesses. I think that's why they're so good at what they do.
All right. So let's go ahead and move on to the next title. Let's see, what do we have here? Nisekoi. Nisekoi just completed after it began last season.
Right.
The second core is now ended, so. What did it end on? Like episode 20 or something?
Yep, 20.
Yeah. Kind of an odd number for them to end on.
So it's ending on episode 11.
True.
I haven't seen this one, guys, so I'm at a loss here.
And again,
I read
like,
the manga, but I haven't
the
watched
sake
it.
of the group's timing is crazy. Mike had to leave for Data Life. Albert leaves for Nisekoi. Albert's probably been talking about Nisekoi at a weekly episode basis, and I was also a watcher of it. And I got to admit, I didn't really read the manga at all, but I did like kind of Shaft's animation for this one. Since it is the second core, I'm just going to come out and say I don't know how well it grafted to the source material or how many liberties it took in anything that it did, but it was a fairly enjoyable project again, and I think what really made it stand out is Shaft's fairly iconic animation style, but it didn't exactly play like the Bakemonogatari or the also to be covered later Meikaku City Actors. It was kind of toned down and it really focused on a lot of kind of background like shining effects, but the opening was actually really outstanding in my opinion. The second opening that has played really recently, I'm not like necessarily condoning the song from, which might be actually, ironically, one of the last Claris songs we'll ever see in an anime, because I don't know if anyone's heard, but one of the two core members of Claris wants to graduate from the group, and they claim it's not going to end the group, but if one, kind of goes away, Claris will definitely not be the same. This might be the last anime to get a like iconic Claris original group opening. So, and I love the animation of the opening. I just wanted to stress that. The show actually had some nice animation in the pop-up from like kind of like the backgrounds. Like the characters really stood out from the background, and I really noticed that. And I mean, the story progressed pretty much like if you attempted to give the story a shot at all, you knew exactly what you were in for, and it didn't necessarily like deviate there from anywhere. It pretty much kept its repetitious pattern of situational humor, and characters like pretty much found out about the situation they're in relatively in the same time frames. It was an enjoyable show, though, I must say. If you're in for kind of like slice of life kind of drama or blown out of proportion drama, then this show kind of had it. So
Kinda?
The only thing that surprised me about this series was starting from the very first episode, the opening. It shows one of the characters' silhouettes, but you don't see her way into the second part of the series. So that was kind of threw me off at the beginning, but having read the manga, I mean, they were pretty close from what I can remember, and it was fun just being able to watch it animated. And a lot of the things they did was pretty funny and unique, like especially a lot of these moments where they would like kind of spit out like, what the hell? It's like they had like little cardboard cutouts and they just put it right next to the picture every single time. I thought that was kind of funny. But the facial expressions that were used throughout the whole series was very big. It was used quite often. It was pretty fun. So Michael, did you watch, or you said you saw only the manga or read the manga?
Yeah, I've read the manga. I haven't watched it yet. It's on my list.
Yeah, I would recommend it if you've read the manga because I believe you would enjoy it if you like the manga.
I did like it. That's why it's on my list. I just haven't gotten around to. I've downloaded it. I just have to actually watch it.
But if it's anything like the book, then I haven't seen the very last two episodes, but since I've read the book, I can pretty much guess what happens. There's really no resolution for if he picks a girl.
Yeah, I was reading the synapse here, and just from what I'm reading, I can pretty much guess how it ends.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. They kind of beat around the bush endlessly. I think that was one of the things that I was kind of about, at least with the manga, was there didn't seem to be any conclusion in sight. Like they kept going back to certain things, and then they would go in a totally different direction, and then they'd go back and hint at different things again, and then go in a totally different direction again. Or they introduce a new girl, and it's like, come on, seriously?
You know, I actually kind of surprised myself with this one because throughout a lot of the harem seeming shows, there's a small harem at play here, just a very small one, not played like a harem show at all. Definitely keeps following with the drama, but I usually don't care about the romantic interest of Mr. Main character throughout any of these series, and in this one, I can personally say I don't care what the freaking story says. He chooses Mother F and Onodera. I am blindsided set on it cannot be anyone but her. I don't care. Leave me alone. It's her.
I'm still partial on the blonde.
Cutie though. Like she's good. Don't get me wrong. Just
I like her.
Onodera all the way.
Nah, I still like the blonde. The blonde is still as good as that character was. That the blonde is just my type. So.
If she was more involved in the story, give Onodera a shot, and maybe you'd see.
That's true.
Anyway, I'm not going to get into that, but it was definitely a very enjoyable show, and yeah. I actually do kind of wish that it had more of a resolution than it did, instead of just kind of like dissolving into their kind of like daily life that's been established. But just like one of the, at one point he has this locket that's like any synopsis you'll read, you'll find out about it. It's not exactly a spoiler. I'm just going to say something happens to it, and he has it sent off to repair, and under like the story premise of as soon as that gets fixed, we can like get things resolved, and like. Here we go weeks, months later, and that thing never like resurfaces in the story at all again. For all we know, it's still stuck in the shop. Just the guy forgot about it, and he's keeping it in the desk somewhere. Many, many years down the road, he's just gonna be like, "Oh, hey, look at this locket I got that I don't know where it came from. I'll give it to my daughter or something."
That thing is pretty huge. I'm sorry, but for as many times as he loses it, I mean, that thing is big.
Well, and at the start of the series or of the actual plot, they make it out to be such an important aspect of the story. You know, oh, I have this locket, and because that's like the whole premise is two girls have a key, each matching what should fit in the locket.
Oh
And
God,
then,
my 2 girls, 1 key.
well, they say, but they don't go into that. Like you would think that would be the main premise for the plot, but they kind of that's kind of one of the things that they keep hinting at. They keep hinting at this locket. You know, he loses the locket, or someone else finds out about the locket, or blah 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 blah, and then it's for like a chapter or two, and then you never see it for like 12 more chapters.
Yeah, like I just didn't like how that dissolved into nothingness and didn't like
Mm-hmm.
get involved. Like I'm not sure what the manga's gonna do with it if they involved it again ever, but the animation kind of plays it off as once you see it go off for repairs as they claim, it pretty much disappears from the story all but entirely. So, and that's
I
the
think
only
that's
one thing I
kind
didn't
of
like.
where the manga's at is. I think it gets sent off. I don't think it's come back in the manga yet. So.
He lost the receipt. Let's face it.
or he refused to pay.
That you know what? The guy overcharged him. He said, "Fuck it, keep the damn thing."
Mm-hmm. That's what it was.
Alright, so let's go ahead and move on. So goodbye, Niseko. You were good. We got next Mushishi. Seeing as Sean is the only one who's seen this at all, I can only hope he's still here.
Alright, here I am. Lost my mind for a second. Yeah, it's more Mushishi. It is like it's probably like the highest budget thing this season actually. Like the production values and the production itself is just immaculate. It's incredibly well detailed. The storytelling is great. But I think my one gripe about Mushishi is so there was the first series from back in the day, and that ran for 2 seasons. Then here's the second series, and ran for 1 season. Then at the end, there's an announcement for the next one. But watching some of these episodes, I found myself getting a little bit bored. Like the formula of Mushishi has sort of been established, and I could sort of see where every episode was going. I don't know. Yeah, that's all I really want to say about it.
Do you think they were trying to take it down a different path than it should have gone down?
No, it's like one of those supernatural specialist kind of shows, like a Natsume Yushin show or something like that, where there's a guy who specializes in the supernatural things that are afflicting the random people that he runs across. So every episode has like a person who's fallen ill or is afflicted by some weird supernatural power, or they think that they have supernatural powers, but then he comes along and says, "Oh, it's actually because of this or that, and here's how you fix it." And there's usually some like either tragic or bittersweet story revolving around this character who has lived with this affliction or something like that. And like the number of episodes are getting into the 30s, and by that point, I felt like I've seen this formula enough times that I wasn't as excited about it as I was before. And I'll inevitably watch the next season, but I think I still think it's an awesome show if you haven't seen it before. But having gotten this far, and they're not really switching it up that much, I'm just finding myself a little bit bored.
Fair enough.
And that's all I have to say about Mushishi.
Yay.
Yay.
I hope to watch it one day. I started it a while ago, but I had some other things I had to do. Like I had to watch this hentai right here. Deikoku no Dragonar.
It's not a hentai.
No. I mean, true, it's rated plus 13 up,
Okay,
but it's not a
now I
hentai.
understand how Nick felt about the brother complex thing.
Yeah. You know, when Nick told me about this anime, I almost didn't even want to watch it. I was like, I don't even want to watch it.
I will say
Okay.
this
Yeah.
about Dragonar. It's nowhere near as good as the light novel or the manga.
What? Not enough etchiness to it.
No, just the character development, the art style, it's just it's not as good.
It did feel like they left a lot out.
They did.
Okay, so check out the manga. Got it.
Yes.
I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah, the manga has the clothing torn off more. You know.
No,
Never
it
mind. I
doesn't.
pass. Never mind.
It's not itchy.
Just letting you know, Kevin, Tank has not read the manga, so.
No, he is not.
Just
So
like
his input means nothing.
Yes,
And I
I
have two
have.
volumes of it, so.
I've read the manga. That's why I know it's a hentai.
Ugh.
But you know what? I will give it a shot regardless of what you say.
That's all we can ever ask.
Yeah, I'll give it a shot.
So, Mike, tell us a little bit about it then, since you're defending it so much.
More than anything, I'm defending the plot. Like I said, the anime. It's based off of a light novel series by the same name. It's basically a story about a world where dragons exist, and there's this school that trains people to ride dragons. The main character. What happens is when a person who wants to be a dragon trainer, I guess you can call them, when they go to visit the, like, I guess the mother of all dragons. She implants an egg into them, and eventually it hatches into a dragon. So you follow the main character as he goes through high school, finally getting his dragon, and dragon ends up being a lowly, which is interesting in itself. So it's not edgy. Oh, I will. No, it is very edgy. I will definitely give it that. But it's not a hentai. It's not anything like that. It just likes to push the limits of what is and what is not.
Right, like he's just trying to say it's not necessarily a hentai, but there is heavily use of tentacles.
Yes, it's,
So,
if you're looking for a tentacle grape show, this is definitely one that will suffice.
it's not something you want someone to walk in on you on. It's like one of those things. It's not what it looks. Okay, it is what it looks like, but it's not that way.
Yeah, it's one of those where if you watch it in a dark room, you're going to give off the wrong impression.
Well, my brother did walk in when I was watching it. He's like, I'm sorry for interrupting. And I was like, no, you can watch it with me, bro. And he's like, no, it's a little weird. And he walked away. And I was like, I didn't think anything of it until after you left, and I went, ah, shit.
It kind of pushes that limit to where
I just got used to
definitely
it.
makes you
So I
wonder.
just didn't think nothing of it until after you left, and I went, fuck.
I mean,
Well,
this show is so bad, and I mean, in one of the episodes, you got all these girls all over the place, wrapped around in tentacles, clothing half. I mean, I was like, oh my god, this is like, I swear, if you pull a blue girl and this up together, it just the art quality would be just different. That's all.
Yeah, it definitely pushes that. It skirts that line quite expertly. I mean, it's similar to like High School DxD, Mach and Key, to where it's basically one penetration scene away from being rated R or rated X. You know, it definitely skirts that line very expertly, but they're good at skirting that line.
Yeah, I just got to say my take on the show was it was probably one of the more mediocre titles in my list. There might be like a hidden gem in the manga, but the animation, there's not a ton to necessarily appreciate about it. It's this colorful little title that kind of like the way they render the dragons, I'm not exactly sure if they CG'd them because those things probably can't be hand drawn. You notice like a texture applied to like a lot of the dragon skins, and
Mhm.
it just kind of like stands off the animation so much. Where I actually didn't like the appearance of the dragons almost at all. They pretty much all look the same unless they're like some super special dragons. So they get their own like art, but like pretty much a lot of them are the same model, just with a different skin color or some other minor thing. And
No,
they're so like abundant that it's just
you hit
kind
it right on the head.
of. And like I said, I already don't appreciate the color scheme that they've applied to the dragons per se now. The rest of the animation is fairly decent. The characters have that color. Their interactions are kind of crazy. You have a lot of kind of tropes that appear. You have the Hime laugh character who does that Hime laugh well. Who
Oh,
um,
ho, ho, ho.
I forgot
so
about her.
yeah, but I mean, I didn't really necessarily like a whole lot of the characters, and the story took forever to kind of get to where it was going. So it's
Mhm.
definitely one of the titles that, again, I don't know if the manga had a lot more interesting content than the anime, but it just kind of
Yes.
it seemed like it wanted to be like DxD, but at the same time, it didn't really want to come out and say, "Oh yeah, we are going to be over the top of that." Like it tried to be serious with its story too, whereas DxD you can kind of tell it kind of took equal parts of seriousness towards story and like etchiness, and it
Well,
kind of blended the two together so nicely. This one, the story kind of conflicts from their forced etchiness.
see, and that's the problem with High School DxD. If you read the light novel, you'll understand where the anime is coming from because the plot centers around exactly what the anime was about. Like to turn that light novel into an ecchi novel, you pretty much just need to do animate it word for word. I mean, it's that raunchy. It's wow. Um, but this one, Dragon R, it's not that ecchi of a story. They add a lot of scenes that make it ecchi, but at least in the manga and the light novel, it's not that bad. It really truly is not that bad. There are a couple scenes like with the dead dragon, the undead dragon. Yes, that has the tentacles and all that, but it's not central to the plot. It's just kind of yeah, it's there. It's in for a couple pages, and then it's gone. You know.
There's a side of me that just kind of questions why dragons have tentacles,
Well, it's an
even
undead.
undead ones, even
I agree, but
like some guy like George R. R. Martin does like a zombie show next, and like the
yeah,
zombies
exactly.
have tentacles.
And that's kind of the whole point. It's not as bad as the show makes it out to be. The plot is actually really good. The story is really cute. You know, it's not that bad. There are a couple scenes that the anime really overemphasizes the etchiness. You know.
I think the anime probably did that to add comedy to it, to make it to make it funny.
Yes, I would definitely agree with that. They wanted to add fan service and comedy to it, and it goes too far, you know.
Yeah, it definitely took it to a whole new level.
Like I said, it's if you read the light novel or the manga, it's not that bad. Hell, it wouldn't be published in the U.S. if it was that bad.
Okay. Maybe the manga and stuff. I'm just saying this anime is a
Anime, I will
hentai.
100%
Anime is
agree
a hentai.
it was far worse than the light novel and the manga were. I will 100% agree with that. But it's still, if you could put High School DxD on U.S. Channels,
It'd be
doesn't
taken
count as a
down
hentai.
immediately. It'd be taken down immediately.
No, it's up. Hulu has it.
Yeah,
Oh my god.
Netflix has it. It is up. So you can watch it subtitled and dubbed here in the United States. And if that one gets approved, Dragon R is nowhere near as bad.
Yeah, I don't think like the U.S. would necessarily like take down anime just because it'd have to be really, really obscure, like in its approach of trying to sell a story and be like much worse than this. Like I just don't see
Well,
them like being like this
No,
show did what? Take it
But
down.
this
and
show
that and
probably
that's
won't
kind of
get
the
it
point.
because of the lolly characters, though.
Well,
Yeah,
High
but
School
I
DxD
mean,
has a lowly character.
yeah, with
That
just like
shows far
one.
more.
Well, no, two, I guess maybe, but well, no,
Yeah,
one's a
too.
dude. Anyway, there's just a lot of things in it that what it does is it doesn't try to necessarily like it might have the lolly character, but at the same time they try to set a point of difference, like, oh, they are a dragon, their aging system is different, bloody freaking bloody da. But they didn't really try to make her come from that angle. Like, yeah, she was pretty unaware of how things really work in the human world. She was able to tap into like a lot of knowledge. So there was a lot of things she was well aware of, just not like human terminologies for things or anything she hasn't gotten into looking up yet. But
Mm.
they just didn't really present her in that angle. Like they didn't make her seem like like the lolly character. So she had more of that
Fair enough.
tsundere moe-ness than the lolly moe-ness.
Yes, I would 100% agree with that.
All right, so let's go ahead and kind of finish up this thing.
Are you
But all
done
I'll say is,
bashing poor
all I'll
Dragonar?
say is, all I'll say is, as you're watching the first episode, if you can't get past the first 5 minutes, you probably won't be able to watch the rest of it.
Oh my god,
5 minutes has that one girl
I
right
actually kind of forgot about that, and you just made me
Wait,
remember. And it's like,
The first 5 minutes wasn't that bad.
it was pretty bad. That would be
No,
like
it
worse than,
wasn't.
in my opinion, that was like if you're talking about tentacle scenes, that's like the one scene where you got to say like in the first 5 minutes, all it needs is penetration to be a hentai. That's the first five
No.
minutes.
Well, but it doesn't do anything.
I'm looking at the manga's first page. The first
Yes.
page.
No,
Boobs.
I'm not talking. I'm
Naked
talking about
chick
the
right
anime.
there,
Like
boom.
the first
Right on
scene
top
in
of
the
Yes.
anime.
This is
That's
the manga.
not a loli.
No,
it's
she's
true, it's not a loli,
No,
but it's
we're not
definitely
going with
ecchi.
the. Yeah, we're talking about just like the ecchi nature of the show. Is all Tank's talking about.
I fully admit that it is a ecchi show. It does have quite a bit of echiness to it.
I actually kind of
I'm
completely
not
forgot
saying
about
that.
that.
I'm looking at the cover art. It's just like, okay, some of this is just, I don't know, man.
I somehow managed to forget those first 5 minutes of the show, and now it's just like scarring its way back into my memory.
I'm just saying, if you can't handle the first 5 minutes, you probably won't handle the show.
I kind of back him with that. If the first scene is not your jive, then get out now while you can.
Right.
Ugh.
I do
I was
recommend
just
it.
trying to give them like a thing. Like I mean, gosh, think of it. If like any person just says, "Oh, I wonder if this show is going to be. It has dragons. I like dragons. That's going to be my take in watching the show." Nah, you might want to take the first jive of like the first 5 minutes and be like, "Yeah, that doesn't go away."
But it doesn't stay like that the entire show.
No,
though.
but since
Or
it's
even the
present, you
entire
got to take
manga.
into account people's taste. And, oh, okay, never mind. We're just gonna abandon this now.
All right, let's
Don't
go
try
to
to
the
say
next
if you like dragons, watch the show despite all that stuff you don't like. It has dragons.
It does.
Okay,
for
let's go
every
to the
dragon.
next
I'm with you. I'm trying to defend it, but it's just undefendable. I can't defend it.
Okay, let's go to something wholesome like Tonari no Seiki. My neighbor Seiki.
The person next to me, say.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't say person, but next
Well-
to me, Seiki-kun.
Nick, you're the only one who's seen all of it.
Oh, really?
I think it just says Seki-kun, not Seiki. Seki.
Yes.
Seiki-kun. Okay. I can't read.
No, it's easy to try to say, but it's one of the Japanese kind of things. It's hard to as an English speaker differentiate between say and se sometimes. Only sometimes. Like ni sekoi is not ni sekoi.
All right, what do you have to say about the show?
Yeah, Nick,
you
talk
know-
about Japanese class later.
It pretty much exactly what it was from the first season. This was kind of more like a two-core short, and I'm not used to shorts being necessarily like two-core long. For the most part, they are pretty short shorts. Didn't think I'd ever see that in an anime title, but anyway, um, it just keeps following through. If you watch the first four, you just know that this guy shows up to class and he doesn't like pay attention to anything the classroom's doing. He brings stuff in his bag. He uses it for intents that it's not meant to use for. Like he'll enact like war dramas he's come up with out of like shogi pieces. He just kind of messes around in the classroom. And we have a character who sits next to him who tries to focus on the lesson as a good student, but usually gets wrapped up in whatever the heck he's doing. So and that's pretty much she's the narrator of the series. She gets all the narration in while she observes this other character goofing off in class, and it's much the same. And it was a fairly decent short. It didn't necessarily like top my. It didn't necessarily stand out in anything. It's just kind of a mediocre short, in my opinion. It's something that you can watch and be like, that was like 3 minutes of my life of fairly decent humor. I actually think I watched it just because I wanted to know how he was going to mess around in class the next day. I wanted to see the activities this dude would keep coming up with, and that was pretty much my point of intrigue in watching the series.
All right. Just out of curiosity, do they ever get a new ending, or is it the same ending throughout all 20-some
Nope,
episodes?
it's the same ending all throughout the whole thing.
I thought they would have changed it by now.
Nope, it was the same. Like, I'm guessing they could have, just they didn't.
I wonder why.
All right. So that's pretty much all I had on the schedule for completed titles that we've all watched.
So,
Is there
so we're
anything
not
anyone
gonna
wants to
do,
talk about?
like two core stuff, or are we gonna like stuff that is finished?
We're just talking about stuff that's finished right now. Another
Mangaka.
week we'll continue the other stuff.
Let's wait on the Maji one, just because we probably want a few more people to be present for that one. Like some of the lesser shorts, I don't mind commenting on, just to get them kind of out of the way for right now.
But you don't want to talk about mangaka?
Well, we're saving some stuff for another person to discuss with us
Right.
for another week. Like,
You
what
kinda
title do you want
raised
to talk about, Nick?
One that I just want to kind of talk about because I didn't get much of a chance to talk about it when it did kind of come out since it was on the tail end of the earlier one, was the M3 Sono Kuroki Hagane.
Wait.
I didn't even watch that one.
So,
How was it?
M3. Oh, oops, that's the wrong title. M3. What do you have to say?
Okay, so now that the show has kind of established itself a little bit, and I can comfortably talk about it a lot more, it is going to be a two-core. It's kind of weird because it takes a long time to get going. Sean actually kind of forwarded me an interesting snippet of they're delaying the release of like the first few episodes, not seasons or anything, but how they do the volume releases. They're actually delaying them for quality reasons, and I can kind of see that in the animation. It was off to a very gruff start. It's highly confusing, and throughout, I'd say like the first, 5, 6 episodes, it takes a lot of investment on the user's end to kind of sit there and follow. You really got to think about the series a lot to really try to get where it's coming from before it eventually kind of gets comfortable and you figure it all out later. So it does have a highly elusive intro, but it centers around these mech units that come out that are able to mentally link with their pilots, but there is a little bit of a rough spot. It's not, not a lot of people can handle this mental linking. And the pilots themselves can actually kind of mentally link with each other, too. It's not a straightforward, like, we just see each other's memories. It's almost like a new form of communication. Characters often see
Are we talking about
themselves...
Buddy Complex?
No. But I can see where you're coming from. But it's not just two dudes doing it this time. There's no connecte with
There's
what's
no
our
BL undertones.
right. There's lots of gender mix here, and then there's lots of different people. And once its story gets going, I actually find it actually kind of decent. But I didn't know what I was in for when I was first kind of watching it. So we have this realm that is like basically appeared on the map. They call it the Lightless Realm because it pretty much looks like a black spot, a black dome that has just appeared on the map. Anything within it kind of gets this crusty kind of metal over it, and for whatever reason, human emotions or human bodies can, if it had like a strong idea of some sort, its memory kind of gets left behind in this living metal. And sometimes it escapes the lightless realm and comes out into society, and people have to deal with it because it's a rather malevolent force. Its intention is not to destroy; it's just doing its own thing, but it tends to hurt things in the process, so to speak. So eventually, we start seeing these really advanced mechs come up, and they're very limited in production because they take a while to make, and they actually require a certain component that just screams Evangelionism to me. Like Evangelion didn't come out in a minute, and this series is. So there's a lot of confliction with these mechs and how they're produced and what they include. But I still really want to see where this series is going, and I will comment it in the get-go because it is kind of unique for what it's doing. I can honestly say I've never seen this. The story put across this way. Certain elements of this has been done before, but its presentation is highly unique in my opinion, and I really do want to just watch this all the way through to try to convey all what it was. You really see a lot of a quality difference between the first few episodes and this later running arc. Now it's kind of gotten a lot better that it's been established, but it has a very rough spot when it wants to get going. But by the way, they do kind of differentiate between two different metallic beings in this one. You have reminiscent ideas that animate as this dark metal, and those are referred to as I can't pronounce it. It's like adminit. I'm not exactly sure as how they pronounce it at all. My bad. But then you have actual beings that are alive and have kind of thought that are referred to as corpses throughout it, and those are kind of the highly lethal. There's pretty much a saying of it: if anyone visually hears or sees one of those corpses, they pretty much die within a week, and they are pretty much like the revamped form of those reminiscent feelings. Get animation. So.
Imashimi? Is that what it's called?
I'd have to look
They're
it up.
known by this name, Imashimi, the mechs.
Oh, no, not the mechs.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm trying to read the synapse here, and it's using a lot of big words that I can't understand.
Yeah, the mechs, the ones that aren't like any of the really immaculate mechs that are pretty much like the Gundams of the Gundam realm. You got these really special ones that stand above the others, while the others kind of have this generic look. So I really should have had some of the terms prepared for it, but I didn't think I'd be talking about it this soon. But
how many episodes are out right now?
It's scheduled to be a 2-core, and it's got about 11 to 12 episodes out right now. And like I said,
late, huh?
Yeah, it absolutely did start late, and that's why I wanted to bring it up now to try to give it a better explanation. Because I only had an episode or two when I did start trying to explain it, and like I said, the first few episodes are so convoluted of the series that you really need to give it those 6 to 10 episodes to really kind of understand what it wants to do through the rest of its course.
Okay.
And now that I'm at that point,
right.
I really wanted to say that. So it's all about the pilots and the mechs themselves kind of linking thoughts to stay safe while near this dark realm, this lightless realm that just really intrudes the human psyche and can kind of corrupt it into that living metal. But And as I was trying to say before, I don't know why I left off on the tangent. So when these guys kind of are linking their thoughts, they're not exactly sure when they are. And usually they see it in this new medium. For whatever reason, they view a younger portion of themselves going through whatever it is they're communicating. So they can kind of differentiate between the mental links, and sometimes they just get this premonition. Like if someone's thinking something, they get this general knowledge of what they're thinking of, but they don't know who it's from, or necessarily what it's about. So it's not like everyone clearly knows who they're talking of. Unless you really know the person, you might be able to get their point of view, and you might be able to filter out their thoughts from everyone else's. We have a few characters do that in the series, and I just really want to see where it's what its resolution is, what its story is going to be. I'm not necessarily recommending it right now, but I will say there is kind of a curve in the first few episodes. I think people watching it might fall off, and it does get better later, but I just don't know how much better yet.
It definitely sounds interesting, like something that I'm gonna have to look into.
It has a very dark backtone to it. It's not super depressive, but the color tones are darker, and the story is just as dreary.
I looked up some images here, and it looks like a lot of it takes place in like a high school.
Yeah, they are high school students, most of the pilot candidates here. But they are kind of, like I said, on the verge of society near this dome. There is a lot of danger living close to this lightless realm as they are. But they are trying to develop machinery to go into it and figure it out. It's a scientific mystery that people are trying to figure out at this point, and this is pretty much where the story sits, at finding pilots capable of entering into this dome and kind of supporting them. So
Into this Avidia zones. I think that's how
well,
you pronounce it.
the lightless realm, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just from the images here, it definitely looks interesting, and that I'm gonna have to check it out. I'm trying to find an image of the actual machines, but I can't seem to find one.
Look up the Argent and the Sable, and you'll be able to find them right away. Include those two in the search term, and you'll see all their looks pretty much.
Alright, so let's go ahead and go to another title. Hey, Sean, do you want to mention anything about ping pong?
I'm probably the only one who watched that, unless Tripoli joins, right? So should we save that? Or should I just talk about it?
I think you could pretty much talk about it. We're saving a bunch of other titles for when Triple H joins us.
Okay. Well, ping pong is really interesting because it's not exactly a one-man show, but it feels that way. It was made in a big rush, like you could just tell that the production was really rushed. The true opening didn't really appear until episode 4, like in its final form. Animators were showing off like animations that they've done that didn't make it in time for the broadcast. The Blu-ray version's been delayed, I think, till like October maybe. But the thing that made this show really interesting is that every episode was storyboarded by the director, and this almost never happens, and that's like totally insane that he did that. So that means like all the cuts, like he illustrated them. He illustrated the entire storytelling script, the visual storytelling script. So, and ping pong, like really lives or dies by its storytelling, and it's storyboarding, and it is the result is really, really cool. Like even though it doesn't have any production value and the animation is kind of janktastic, but the storytelling is just like so dense and just like like during a ping pong match, it'll continually go from like flashbacks, childhood flashbacks, to the present, to the analytical mind, to surrealism, and then it might even bring in some piece of music, and then it'll become like a music montage. and then every match always culminates in some sort of catharsis where you get like some really deep character development or character insights. And the other interesting thing about ping pong is that it doesn't just follow the winners, it also follows the losers. Like when a character loses like some pivotal match and that basically ends his career, the show will keep following him. And it'll follow him as he decides like what he wants to do with his life, whether he still loves ping pong and what he wants to do within that. It's really a marvel of storytelling, ping pong. So I might watch the Blu-ray versions when those come out, and those will actually come out all in one big box. Like they're not putting out volumes.
So I have a quick question. You said that it didn't really have an opening until the 4th episode.
Yeah, it was just like a clip show opening, and then where they just show here's some animation from the first episode, because that's all we've completed so far, and. By episode 3, they showed like an unfinished version of the true opening, where some of the cuts aren't complete. Like some of the animation is still in the rough stage, but they showed that. And then episode 4, they showed the final version.
Hmm. Alright, I was just wondering about that, to see if maybe they just shortened the episode or if they just added random stuff in there.
It's a really exciting show. I usually stay away from sports anime because it's really conventional, but ping pong is not like that. It's a great drama, even. It has great characters. It goes really into depth with them, and it doesn't just revolve around the conventions of like sports anime. Because the director of ping pong he's not a conventional anime director. He did Kick Hard, and his most recent thing is he directed an episode of Adventure Time.
Oh, really?
He's a really offbeat guy, yeah.
Wow. I don't know why I was never expecting like a Japanese like animation artist like do a crazy cartoon episode of like something American. That's like crazy.
Yeah, I think Adventure Time is a kind of show where they try and find like really interesting animators or something, and then they bring them in and just have them do an episode.
Oh,
so
interesting.
Yeah, that's what I have to say about ping pong. I'm kind of sad Tripley's not here because he'd probably come at it from a totally different angle. But I'm more of like a creator-centric anime viewer, so I'm really obsessed about the people who make the anime and how the anime expresses like what the creators want to say, and so on and so forth. And from that perspective, ping pong is a really awesome show. Like, it has really strong storytelling. It's got no budget, but it's a really exciting show nonetheless.
All right. So let's see. I think Nick wants to talk about one more title here.
Right, just one. Just because I don't think anyone else is necessarily watching it, I just kind of want to get a word out on it at this time. I think there is like 1 or 2 more episodes due out. It's only scheduled for 13, and it's not currently ended necessarily now. But I wanted to talk about Kantoku Fuyuki Todoki, and that's pretty much in English Insufficient Direction, which is a manga. Now, this thing is a short, and I think a lot of people will fall off right away because they don't know what it's about. We have our opening episode with this guy with like Buddha-like ears and this what appears to be like a little infant in like this baby garb with like a little tuft of orange hair. And I think they're like looking at like wedding dresses or something, which makes it really kind of appear very, very odd. But this is a manga that, this short animation has taken no liberties in character design. They're directly based off the manga, which is actually done by Moyoko Ano. And this manga is almost like an autobiography of her married life to Hideki Anno. So those are the 2 characters' perspectives that you're seeing right there. The guy with the Buddha ears is pretty much Hideki Anno, and the little infant is his wife, Moyoko. And it's mostly about her perspective of being married to one of the earlier otaku. As you much know, Anno is pretty much the founder of Evangelion and a lot of that early otaku culture. And it doesn't necessarily get into specifics. It doesn't try to say what's unique about their married life, but she just tries to kind of animate her kind of feelings and getting used to how much of an otaku her husband is, and becoming familiar with a lot of the elements. And I can personally say I've never looked into any of these two individually, um, but I didn't know that Anna was so much of a fan of like what is apparently Kokatsu as he really is. Because most of his stuff that he seems to fantasize over is like the what's it, the Common Rider and stuff like that. So um, as odd as this show came across, I think people didn't really know what it was about, so I just wanted to really give it the synopsis it really deserved.
Alright, I've never actually heard of that title, so that's something new. I didn't know it was out.
Yeah, it's definitely been running, and like I said, visually I didn't know what I was watching at first, and I actually had to go look at the synopsis to really know where it was coming from and understand it. If it was just a show that I knew nothing necessarily about, that I probably wouldn't have ended up watching it. So. There's really not too many like heartwarming moments in this thing or anything. It's like literally snippets of her attitude as she or what as she slowly becomes more familiar with like otaku culture. And it's not like the current anime otaku culture where it's all about the fan service and other hilarious tropes. But this is kind of like really really old school otakuism that she's getting used to.
Alright. I might actually check that out since they're shorts.
Yeah, I had no idea that this thing existed.
Yeah, like
Never heard of
it's
it.
very. It wasn't really talked about, and I'm not really saying. It looks like it's flash animated, so I'm just gonna get that. Like, it really bases itself off the manga graphics because the manga wasn't the most like artistic thing in the world, and the anime follows suit. It looks like it's one of those flash animated shorts that you
Mm-hmm.
really wouldn't know anything about, and I'm not necessarily glad that I watched it. Like, it hasn't like fulfilled my anime taste in any way. But it's just such an interesting thing existing out there. I thought I just had to give it a little background and to pique some other people's interest and maybe get their take on it. So
Alright. So, I think that's it for today for the titles we're going to go through. We'll schedule another hangout to cover the rest, and a few more titles should be coming to a close by then. And then, of course, we're going to have our summer season coming up. I do want to make a quick mention that there have been quite a few releases of the anime Mirai for 2014. I think I've already seen 3 or 4 titles already out.
I think only like 2 are out. I don't know.
So I would recommend picking those up every single year. There's about 4 of them worth that get released. It's really fun to watch those shorts.
So do you
I'm
say
not
there's
saying.
only how many are out right now?
I think there's
think
3.
there's 2.
3, 2.
I personally think there's only 2. I'm not sure. There might be 3. But the only ones that I know of are Harmony and the Cronus. And those are the 2 that I'm aware that are out right now. I don't know if there's a third.
Yeah, I've seen Harmony, which is pretty cool. That's from the Sakasama no Patema guy, or the Hypnojikon guy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna look up Cronus real fast. Damn, I don't know who it is offhand. They tend to get interesting directors for each of these. All right,
Well, I thought there was 3, so I'll have to check back, but definitely go out there and check out those anime Mirais if you haven't, because those are really fun to watch. Um, Anything you guys want to mention before we go?
yeah, not really.
Yeah, we'll have plenty to say next week. So I think
I kind of feel that. I didn't really talk about my openings as much as I usually do. I kind of glazed over them.
Well, good, because you know I don't watch openings.
neither do I.
Did Michael Davis talk about Data Live?
Hey, Michael, did you want to mention anything about Data Life? Hello.
Okay, take that as a no.
He's
Can
gone.
you hear me
We
now?
lost him.
I'm
Oh,
here.
He's
The ending
alive.
stunk. To
Awesome.
be blunt. Yeah, I mean, the series was great up to the end. It only lasted 10 episodes. It almost feels like they cut it short. You know, like they were going to do more, but only had 10 episodes, so they had to quickly come up with some kind of ending and end it. You know, they did announce that they're doing 2 movies, which is great, but the second series was a huge letdown compared to the first one. I mean, the characters were great, the voice acting was great, you know, uh, but it almost seems really, really cut short. You know, I loved it up into the last episode. I mean, to be perfectly blunt, that last episode stunk. I absolutely hated it. But that's me. And I like the Data Live series.
And you also thought that one title wasn't hentai, so rest in
Yes.
peace.
Hey, I know what hentai is. There should be no doubt in this group that I know what hentai is.
Alright, so thank you guys. Thank you people for watching. That one viewer. You're special to me. Whoever you are.
Our one viewer. How
Yeah,
much about
so
that?
that's
It's Tank's mom.
Aww.
Hi,
Hi,
Mom.
Mom. Alright, so thank you guys, and we'll see you guys another time.
Yep.
Cool beans.